They told me outright, we're going to make your life miserable if you don't get it.
So this is not over, which is why I continue to be vocal.
It was all a farce, a total facade that so many people fell for.
I've met so many parents whose children have just died, dropped dead. And so I started speaking out against the mandates on social media, and they did not like that. They went after me very publicly.
Truthfully, this is when I first had my eyes open. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Gains for Girls podcast. I say it every time, but it's because I mean it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening and being tuned in. Make sure you never miss an episode. You can do that at OutKick.com. That's where you can you can subscribe. Please be sure to share these episodes far and wide because it really does help. Super excited for today's guest. She's someone who I have watched on social media, truthfully, for a long time. She has helped me find my voice in other areas of these cultural issues outside of the gender ideology movement. So very excited to get into that. But before we do, I want to tell you about today's sponsor. It is Cozy Earth. They have the best, and I don't say it lightly, the best sheets. They have the best pajamas, loungewear. Their products don't just help you sleep better. They have completely transformed how both my husband and myself, how we unwind, how we rest, how we recharge. We get into bed every night and we instantly just feel calmer. Their sheets have just turned our bedroom, our bed into this sanctuary. It is where luxury meets comfort in every single thread. I have made the switch. Again, my routine has completely changed. I know my family, my parents have made the switch. They are so grateful that I recommended them. So consider this, me recommending you, really urging you to go to CozyEarth.com. You can use my code GAINS, again, GAINES, for 40% off. That's a big percentage off there. 40% off of best-selling sheets, again, pajamas, and more. You can do that at CozyEarth.com. And there's 100 night, I think, sleep trial and a 10-year warranty on all bedding. So really there's zero risk. But spoiler alert, you're not going to want to return it. Today's guest, it is Dr. Mary Bowden. She is a board certified doctor. She's based out of Houston, Texas. She got her degree from Stanford. She completed her residency there. But she gained national attention during COVID, the pandemic, for her outspoken views on vaccine mandates, on alternative treatments, things like Ivermectin, when it was not popular to support these things. Again, she opposed the vaccine, the treatments that were being issued by the AMA and the CDC and the FDA, all really amazing things. And following her outspokenness, she's been sued. She's filed lawsuits. Following her, she was suspended initially for spreading dangerous misinformation, which is really crazy. Given what she was putting out there, again, about the harms of the vaccine. She then filed a $25 million defamation lawsuit against Houston Methodist, alleging that the hospital's actions damaged her reputation, her practice. So even still to this day, of course, she continues to advocate for medical freedom, for informed consent, really awesome, important things that support individuals' rights, again, to make informed healthcare decisions. Very excited for this conversation. Check it out here with Dr. Mary Bowden. Well, Dr. Bowden, thank you so much for joining the Gains for Girls podcast. I am so excited to have you on here. I think, of course, you can provide a lot of insight to my listeners who are typically more plugged in with the gender ideology movement. But I see these two things, the parallels between, of course, the COVID movement, the gender ideology movement. So very briefly, can you give a little snippet of how you have found yourself with the platform that you now have and how, you've been labeled as one of America's most critical freedom-fighting healthcare providers?
Yeah, it's hard to believe. So I'm a ear, nose, and throat doctor in Houston, Texas. And I just sort of stumbled into COVID because I had patients coming to me that were sick, that needed help. And I did what I was supposed to do. And I tried to help them. And Houston Methodist Hospital, where I had privileges, they were the first in the country to mandate the shots. And this was 5 months before Biden. So this was April 1st, 2021. They really paved the way for the rest of the country. And so I started speaking out against the mandates on social media, and they did not like that. They went after me very publicly. I found out that my privileges were suspended from a reporter who texted me to ask me to confirm if it was true. And then they went on Twitter and tweeted about me spreading dangerous misinformation. And I just had this onslaught of media come after me after that. It's been quite the journey. I'm still fighting the medical board. They turned me into the medical board, and then 3.5 years later, still at it with them. So it's been an interesting ride,
to say the least. I'm sure. When you say your privileges were suspended, what does that entail?
So hospitals, you can't just walk into a hospital and start treating people. You have to go through a credentialing process. I had privileges there, meaning that I was allowed to treat patients there. I never used the hospitals, a very loose association. I just had them there as sort of a backup. For them to come after me, it was really a publicity stunt on their part. I was not, really affiliated that much with the hospital. So, but to get a suspension and to have it done in that fashion, to have it is a big deal. I mean, I'm not aware of any other hospital ever doing that to a doctor.
No, of course. And you were able to, I guess, in the meantime, continue practicing because you operate in a private capacity. Is that right?
Yes. So, I mean, I can't admit any patients to their hospital, but I can, as long as I have a license, I'm allowed to continue to see patients.
When I hear that Texas was the first to mandate these requirements, so they call them, again, that shocks me. I think there's a lot of misconceptions of Texas out there. I mean, you have seen firsthand how it's really not as much of a stronghold for conservatism as most people would think. Is that fair to say?
Oh, yes. So I think the mandates, I think it was very purposeful that they started in Texas. I think that they knew if they could get away with the mandates in Texas, they could get away with them anywhere. And, Texas Children's Hospital, where all this gender stuff has gone on, also no surprise, Texas. And people don't realize this, but healthcare dominates the Texas economy. We have the largest medical center in the world. So Texas Medical Center in Houston, where I live, has 61 hospitals and has the largest cancer hospital in the world. It has the largest children's hospital in the world. And it brings in people from all over the place that dilute our values. And healthcare professionals traditionally have been more conservative, have voted and supported Republicans, but that has shifted over the last 10 years. And so now healthcare providers are more likely to be Democrats, and they're really taking over our state.
We've followed Dr. Heim very closely, and how, I mean, he was essentially a political prisoner for 7 months, really until, I mean, even still, of course, he has to deal with a lot of the repercussions that have come from it. But until the Trump administration and the DOJ got involved in his case. You mentioned the shift in the medical community over the past decade or so. Do you think it's because of what is now being taught in medical schools?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of it. I think that, the medicine used to support independent doctors like myself to a much larger extent, and now it's become very centralized. So it's unusual. I am very independent. I call myself third party free. I don't contract with insurance companies, hospitals, or the government, but I'm really only in the 1%. So 77% of doctors work for a hospital, 20% work for private equity or insurance company, and 2% work for the government. So they're all, it's very centralized, and that sort of thinking is very, it's more left leaning. And I think that's a large part of the problem.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you were outspoken and critical, of course, of the COVID vaccine, which I'll give you a very brief. Truthfully, this is when I first had my eyes opened. I think a lot of people, but me being a young college student at the time, I was a college athlete. I will never forget being a sophomore in college. I was young, I was healthy. I'd already had COVID at this point. had taken, biology major, chemistry major. So what I knew to be true were antibodies were the most effective and best form of immunity. And given the fact I'd already had COVID, when my the athletic department at University of Kentucky approached me and said, you have to get this vaccine, it naturally didn't sit right with me. So I kind of pushed back on this and I said, no, I don't have to get this vaccine. They said, well, it's mandatory. I said, well, can you explain what mandatory means? Well, they said, well, we really just mean it's highly suggested. So that's when, again, another big red flag for me. They tried everything in their power. They told me outright, we're going to make your life miserable if you don't get it. And if you do get it, we'll give you like this free Krispy Kreme donut. I don't know. There were so many things that just, it didn't sit right with me. And I think that's where I learned how to say no to authority figures, which in turn allowed me to be able to say no in other, realms of my life that has now led me to where I am. So you were outspoken of course, these mandates and different things, but you've also been a proponent of ivermectin, which has been labeled as this boogeyman drug during COVID and beyond. You couldn't talk about it. You couldn't get it. So can you tell us, number one, what it is, its benefits, and the legislative push that we have seen recently to make it easier to access across the nation?
Yes. And briefly, I do want to talk about what happened with you, because I've heard this from other college athletes that they didn't kick you off the team, but they made your life miserable if you didn't get it. So I am curious, did they follow through with that? And
so it was really unique. It was really unique. They had people come in, what they labeled as outside professionals. Again, whatever that means. They didn't tell us how these people were qualified as professionals, didn't tell us any of their credentials, anything like that. But they had these people come in, and I remember specifically, because I was one of the ones who said, no, you can't make me do this, right? They told me, Riley, you're the team captain. You're going to be hurting your team if you don't. And again, they knew I don't want to hurt my team, right? More than I care about my own personal success or the goals that I personally have, I cared about my team. And so that was, I think, an emotional thing that they tried to do. Then I remember so specifically, they sat me down. We had a big meet, SEC rivalry, a big meet coming up against University of Alabama. And they sat me down and they said, Riley, if you don't get the vaccine, you won't be able to go to University of Alabama. And again, I called their bluff and I said, that's fine, knowing that I was my university's best swimmer at the time. So no, I never got the vaccine, and I got to go to University of Alabama. There were no repercussions, but they made us think that there were, which were why so many people conceded. I did have to, for the rest of my, again, collegiate career, so for 2 years, have to get tested every single week, where they shoved, a Q-tip basically to my brain. I still had to wear my mask. You could basically wear it as like a chin diaper. There weren't really requiring you to wear it over your nose and mouth. I had to wear it in the weight room. I had to wear it in class. Certain classes made me wear 2 masks because I wasn't vaccinated. But outside of, again, the nonsensical, mandates that came with the contact tracing and all of that stuff, social distancing, the mask, there were no repercussions that they said they were going to have. It was all a farce, a total facade that so many people fell for.
Did you have any teammates that also stood up, or were you the only one?
So of my team of 40 girls, I think there were 2 of us. There were 2 of us.
That's so
and
sad.
Again, it was a convenience thing. It wasn't because we believed it. We thought we had to have it to live long, healthy lives. It's because they made our lives hard if we did it, like so many Americans face. That wasn't just us. That wasn't just college athletes or college students. That was the reality of healthcare providers or U.S. military members or school teachers, right? They told you you'd lose your job if you didn't get it. And in some cases, they followed up. Some cases, they didn't. But I think it goes to, speaks to knowing your rights as well. I knew this word mandatory didn't mean mandatory. And again, I came to that conclusion when they said, we'll give you a free Krispy Kreme donut if you get it. That was such a red flag to me. I couldn't understand why everyone didn't see it how I did. Like, no one's going to offer you free things for getting this free vaccine. Like, it just didn't make sense in my head.
Well, good for you. It's very impressive. I don't know at your age if I would have been that strong. So I'm very impressed.
But even after that, I'll tell you, we still dealt with the the hardships that came with the vaccine because I married an immigrant from England. He came over to the United States in 2018. We met in college. He was an athlete as well. We started dating, got married. Next month will be 3 years of marriage. And under the previous administration, they would not give him his green card because he wasn't willing to get the COVID vaccine. So praise God that Donald Trump got in, and on day 2 in office, he vacated nationwide the mandate that would require legal immigrants to get the COVID vaccine. But we dealt with that for 3 years, basically, of fighting back against USCIS, immigration services, under the previous administration.
Yeah, I tried to write some exemptions for those situations, and apparently they were very hard to get through. Even if a medical doctor writes you an exemption, they didn't always take it. I mean, did you have to just employ stall tactics, or what? How did that work?
Yeah, he was. It's so funny you say that, because when I talk about this, so many people, again, people on the left, who suddenly are in favor of mass deportation, say that my husband needs to be deported and I need to be deported with him for harboring an illegal. He was never here illegally. Of course, there are other ways to maintain residency, like advanced parole or visas. So he was here legally the entire time, but you had to keep applying for extensions. Of course, you have to have an immigration lawyer, which cost us in total about 15 grand. It restricted travel. Again, given his family is all still in Europe, we weren't able to travel and go see them because there was no guarantee at this point we'd be allowed back into the country again under the Biden-Harris administration. So I think Donald Trump gets this bad rep of being, anti-immigration. He made it easier for my immigrant husband to live here in this country. It was virtually impossible under the previous administration had change not been made. So that, along with, again, working, of course, when you don't have a green card here in this country, again, still here legally, it made our lives really hard because he wasn't willing to get the vaccine. And I'm so grateful now, of course, that my husband was just unwilling to compromise on his health in that way.
You married the right guy.
I did. And I'm reminded of it every day. He's a good one, for sure.
Yeah, it's a litmus test.
How
people responded to that situation.
And I think so many people now are kind of kicking themselves, right? Like, I can't believe I did that, right? People who are very staunch conservatives, if that's what, the kind of categories we're placing here, who are realize now if this were to happen again, they wouldn't adhere. But I agree with you. I think we learn very quickly. I'm very involved in the legislative world of Texas. And to see some people who are dear friends of mine, people I love, people like Governor Abbott, truthfully, who are a little slow on the COVID stuff. It was really shocking to me. And I think if it were to happen again, we wouldn't see that same hesitation. But I do agree it was a bit of an eye-opener.
Yeah. The whole conservative thing in Texas in regards to COVID, so many people just want to move on and act like nothing happened. And it's very frustrating. And it's interesting in Texas, the House is so divided between in the conservatives, the ones who are true conservatives and the ones who say they are. It's just blatantly obvious. It's interesting.
Yeah, no, it is. And once you're involved and you kind of have the veil lifted, it's hard to unsee. But back to ivermectin. Again, it's been described as, well, historically, it's been known to be like a horse dewormer. People say to me all the time when I promote ivermectin and when I speak to its benefits, they say, you're promoting drugs that are used on farm animals. Again, can you just tell us its benefits and what you've seen in your profession and how it's helped people in COVID and, again, outside of COVID?
Yeah, so the FDA branded ivermectin as horse medicine. They put out that tweet, the attractive healthcare worker nuzzling the horse, and it said, seriously, y'all, you're not a horse, you're not a cow, stop it. And so that little tweet went viral. It had dire consequences. I actually sued them over that, and we won, and they had to take their misinformation down. Awesome. But unfortunately, it's been branded, right? So everybody has that image and that association in their head. I believe the FDA needs to come out and correct that and make a statement about the safety and efficacy. It's safer than Tylenol. I mean, before I started using it, I really dug into the safety because I was worried. I wasn't sure if it was going to work, but I certainly didn't want to hurt somebody. And so I went to the FDA's website. I looked at the study that got it approved by the FDA, and there's all sorts of toxicity data in there. Something called the LD50 or lethal dose 50 is a benchmark number that we use. The higher the number, the lower the toxicity. The LD50 of ivermectin is super high. It's a lot higher than what we're prescribing for COVID. So once I was assured it was safe, then I started using it and found that it really did work. And I'd been using monoclonal antibodies, but the government took those away. So they did that in conjunction with mandating the COVID shots in October of 2021. Biden mandated the shots. All of a sudden, monoclonal antibodies went away. And so I really started relying heavily on ivermectin and was a little bit worried that it wasn't going to live up to the hype, but it did. I was able to treat thousands of people successfully, and people that got the early treatment survived. It's a shame that what has happened has become so politicized. I mean, I don't think I've ever heard of a medication where they've had to pass laws like this across the country to get it over the counter. It's unbelievable. But yeah, there are 3 states now that have made it over the counter: Tennessee, Arkansas. Yesterday, Idaho became the 3rd state, and then there are 13 or 14 states that have bills to make it over the counter. So it's interesting to see what will happen.
I'm a very proud Tennessean, where we were the first state to do such. So very exciting stuff happening there. And yeah, to your point, I think there's 14 now that have introduced legislation. Some states, it won't go anywhere. I mean, I think there were states on there like New Hampshire and Maine, and of course it will be very hard to do there in those states now as it stands, but it sets a good precedent. Put people on the record. Do they believe in healthcare freedom, or do they not?
I don't think it will pass in Texas.
Which is amazing. Well, remarkable in every sense of the word, I guess. That, again, historically, Texas has led on things like the heartbeat bill and other things that have really put our culture in a chokehold. But here we are where, again, people are scared 2 years, 3 years now, more than past COVID, really the height of COVID, and they're still not willing to, what I would describe as putting Americans and our health and our safety first. What about one thing I've learned from you specifically is about the childhood vaccine schedule. I mean, I have been so shocked to see some of these stats that you've put out about kids and how many vaccines they're receiving by 12 years old or even 1 year old, as it pertains to the COVID shot. Beyond that, I mean, can you just very briefly touch on, again, maybe some of the shocking childhood vaccine stats that you have?
Yeah, so the CDC recommends that all babies get 3 COVID shots by the time they're 9 months old. That is on the pediatric vaccine schedule. And they're not even fully FDA approved for that age. They're still under emergency use authorization for these babies. So it's completely insane. And on the CDC's website, they have a vaccine tracker so you can see how many people have gotten these shots. 12.8% of American children, which is about 9 million children, have gotten the latest version of the COVID shot. So this is not over. Everybody thinks, oh, well, no one's getting these shots anymore. We can just push this aside. It is not the case. And adults are still getting them. 60 million adults have gotten the latest version of the COVID shot. They have 6 mRNA shots under phase 3 testings. They're about to be released onto the market. So this is not over, which is why I continue to be vocal. Clearly, this is a protected drug, a protected vaccine, and under special privileges.
And a protected man who pushed the vaccine. I mean, what was your initial reaction when Joe Biden preemptively pardoned Anthony Fauci?
Par for the course. I mean, none of this is fair. None of this is playing out the way it should. It's just par. I'm just, what it's
Not even shocking at this point.
right. Not even shocking.
It would have been more shocking had that not happened.
Right.
So still to this day, again, in the year 2025, I mean, what risk do you still face for treating patients, especially COVID patients, the way that you do?
I think less risk. I don't worry about that at all. I mean, it's when I look back at some of my notes, every time I prescribed ivermectin, in my notes, I would document that I discuss risk benefit alternatives. I discuss the vaccines like as a legal protection, which normally you don't do when you prescribe a medicine. You do that for surgery or some sort of procedure, but normally if you prescribe a medicine, you don't document that, you discussed all that. Now, yeah, I mean, at this point, I feel like just take my license.
Right?
I don't really, I don't think about it at all. In fact, I've decided when it comes time to retire, I'm going to go down in a blaze of glory, and I'm going to put a billboard next to Texas Children saying free exemptions and just let them take me down.
I think that's quite the way to go. You mentioned your license. It reminds me, truthfully, in college, I got a minor in health law, and of course, with that, it comes with all of the healthcare ethics courses and all the things. And I remember very specifically learning about the Hippocratic Oath. Right? First, do no harm. I mean, do you feel like medical institutions, like the AMA, like the APA, etc., are still adhering to this sacred oath?
Well, clearly not. I mean, you cannot mandate a medical intervention and call that ethical or abiding by the Hippocratic Oath. And I think that we need a constitutional amendment to protect all Americans from any medical mandate going forward. You think about the shots that you have to give your kids to go to school. I had never really considered how unethical that is. Until COVID came along, I just went along with it. But it's not ethical to force somebody to get shots in order to go to school. And we need to correct that and learn from what happened during COVID with these COVID shot mandates.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Last thing for you, I know you have an upcoming hearing surrounding a patient of yours and a situation that you were involved in. So can you just give us a little background on this hearing and maybe what's next for you?
So I tried to help a patient who was dying. He was in the ICU. He'd been there for a month. They were talking hospice, and his wife wanted him to try ivermectin, and the hospital refused. So she decided to sue them, and she reached out to me to be the expert and to be the prescribing doctor. And the lawyers involved in this they did 189 cases throughout the country. So they had their way of doing this. Basically, we won the case in that the hospital was ordered to grant me temporary emergency privileges, which during COVID was a same day process. Normally, when you get privileges, it's quite a drawn out procedure. It takes months. It's, you got to get all this information. But during COVID, because everything was an emergency situation, they would approve you the same day, as long as you had, nothing glaringly obvious. And I had a clean record, never been sued for malpractice, but they put me through all, they made me submit a surgical caseload. They made me get letters of recommendation. So I got it done. And then they still refused to give me privileges. And they went back to the judge. There's all this back and forth. And it was confusing. And I'd never been in this situation before. Lawyers gave me the green light. So we're good. You can send the nurse now. So the nurse shows up at the hospital. She's greeted by the police and the hospital administrator. She doesn't barge into the ICU. She leaves. It's calm. There's no scene. But they turned me in the medical board for sending a nurse to the hospital because they said I didn't have privileges. So that was 3.5 years ago. I've been waiting for a hearing. I had a a very, it's called a settlement conference, which is behind closed doors. And I didn't like what they were offering me. So I fought that. I've been waiting for my hearing. Well, they just got awarded summary judgment against me. So I don't get a hearing. But what's coming up is decide how guilty I am, how much punishment they want to give me. And then I plan on appealing just because I don't want to mark on my record over this.
It's so Orwellian when you describe it that way. Oh, crazy stuff. Well, we'll be following. Of course, I'll amplify your story, what you've got going on at every chance I can. So really appreciate you. As you know, it's rare to have people stand up for what so many know to be true. And again, in this case, safe. But you doing that, I mean, you've opened the eyes of so many, including even me. So thank you very much, Dr. Bowden. I'm very grateful for you.
Well, thanks, Riley. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you guys for tuning in to the Gains for Girls podcast. Her X account is Breathe MD. That's the name of her private practice. You should follow her. Again, I've learned so much. Things that I think most Americans don't know, right? Naturally, you're not overly tuned in on these things and the mainstream media isn't reporting them. So again, her X account is Breathe MD. Thank you guys. Again, go to OutKick.com. That's where you can find all things Gains for Girls. And make sure you go to CozyEarth.com. Use code GAINS, GAINES, for 40% off any purchase. Again, that's a big deal. So go do it. And we will see you guys again next week. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching. The fight to save women's sports and restore common sense is far from over, and I continue the conversation every week. So make sure to catch more content over here and subscribe to OutKick so you don't miss a thing.